Will government cronies be running rampant here after November 1st and be causing chaos in the US? And are you sick of all of the political hullabaloo going on and you having to put up with denial and persecution and rejection in your life? A lot of people have had to go through that. And I think we're going to be experiencing more of that very soon as trends go up in the United States for religious Christian persecution and around the world. Things are getting pretty hasty here. We're going to go over some things that I put out in my last show that I thought were pretty interesting when I was doing my research here. And we're probably going to open up with that today, but it's going to get kind of intense. Some pretty cool news going on, and some pretty difficult news going on. And will any of it happen, or will all of it happen? Let's find out next. All right. So I don't know why this isn't popping up for me. Oh, here it is. So on my last show, I want to show you guys this. My last show, I was talking to you about Levant cities and that I equate the No Kings protesters with modern day Philistines, right? And mixed with Muslims here in the United States. But I found this article today and I thought this was really interesting. Over here in Egypt's eastern border, a lot of things going on with Egypt right now. This came out yesterday. The Way of Horus was a critical trade route connecting ancient Egypt to the greater Near Eastern world. So the title of this is New Kingdom Fortress Discovered in the Sinai. It was so important, in fact, that during the New Kingdom period, the route was heavily guarded by a series of Egyptian fortresses. Excavating at the site of Tel al Karoba, near the modern border with Gaza. Imagine that. A lot of stuff going on over there right now concerning Gaza and Israel, right? Meanwhile, we got archaeologists digging up ancient sites. Archaeologists from Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities have uncovered one of the largest such fortresses ever discovered. The Way of Horus, the Sinai portion of the famous Via Maris, played a critical role in Egyptian trade throughout history. Remember, I talked to you about how Levant cities were big on trade, and that's why the Philistine cities that were taken over were because of the fact that they had huge trade routes and that they were border cities. As one of the few routes across the Sinai Peninsula, this road, which ran along the Mediterranean coast, would have also been vital in connecting the Egyptian Empire to its Levantine territories during the late Bronze Age, 1550 to 200 BC. So I think the cities that I was talking about concerning the Philistines were back in 1620. So this was a little bit earlier, but still kind of interesting that they just found this after we were talking about it, right? Given the road's importance, the Way of Horus was heavily defended during the New Kingdom period and served to strengthen Egypt's eastern border. Excavations at Tel Karoba revealed part of one such fortress. Among the discoveries was the fortress's southern wall, which measures nearly 350 feet long and 8 feet thick. Along the wall, archaeologists identified 11 defensive towers. Although more are expected to be uncovered, the excavators also uncovered portions of the fortress's northern and western walls. In total, the fortress was likely around 86,000 square feet and would have housed a large number of soldiers. One of the site's more interesting features is a 250-foot long winding wall that surrounded a residential area. There's one of the artifacts that they found there. It was a jar. Other discoveries included numerous pottery vessels and sherds, volcanic stones from the Aegean Islands, a large bread oven, and preserved fragments of ancient dough. Mmm, doesn't that sound good? One pottery handle from the site even stamped with the name of Pharaoh Tutmos the First, 1506 to 1493 BC. Preliminary studies of the fortress show that it underwent several stages of restoration and modification over its period of occupation. In previous excavation seasons, a much smaller fortress had been found around half a mile to the southwest, and it was hoped that future excavations will reveal a military port that connected to the Tel Al Kharoba fortress. That's not the only thing that was discovered here in while things are going on in the all over the world, right? But I wanted to show you this. Let me see here. This also popped up. Check this out. So, goofy ads here. So, biblical cities in largest necropolis with 60 tombs dating back 2,200 years was discovered, right? This was just a few days ago itself. Let's zoom in on this. That's only going to want to do this. Here we go. All right. Archaeologists in Turkey recently uncovered over 60 ancient tombs in Colossae, a biblical city immortalized, in the New Testament. The discoveries were reported by um, Anadolu Agency, a state-run outlet in Ankara, on October 6th. Colossae, part of the Aegean region, sits in the foothills of Mount Honaz. The city is best known for being the home of the early Christian community to which St. Paul addressed his epistle to the Colossians, the 12th book of the New Testament. Though the ancient city has been settled since the 6th century BC, it lost prominence when it was severely damaged in an earthquake in the 1st century AD. Despite being rebuilt in the 7th century, the site was ultimately abandoned in 787 after another devastating earthquake. Archaeologist Baris Yenner told AA that the uncovered tombs date back to more than 2,200 years, describing the area as the largest necropolis in Anatolia, featuring rock cut through shaped tombs. Isn't it interesting that we got this Christian persecution going on all over the world, especially over there in Africa right now and Nigeria. And at the same time, we got these archaeological discoveries. And I think God is trying to talk here, which is really interesting. I kind of really want to look into the biblical narrative surrounding these finds and try to discover what Jesus says about it in his word concerning our time, because I think whenever we discover something like this, he's trying to show us either what's next or what he has already done. And it's pretty important that we look into this kind of stuff. So when we find it, it's very curious. But check out the pictures of these tombs. He noted after removing the surface soil, we identified around 65 tombs, of which we excavated 60. Excavators were surprised to find so many side-by-side tombs in such a confined area. It's probably a graveyard, right? Here's some of the excavations. Look at that. You can see the sarcophagus there. It's totally deteriorated and the bones are exposed. The necropolis reflects how ancient people made remarkable use of the area's geological and topographical features, Jenner said. They sought to use the Tavernine rock formations efficiently since agriculture, particularly grain production, was practiced at the time, he added. To preserve arable land, they designated the rocky travertine areas as burial grounds. I mean, like I said, it was a graveyard, right? That's interesting. Look at the way they had these tombs back then. And they were even in the ground. You'd think of some of the ancient tombs, like, and I don't know if they built them this way, but a lot of them we know in some mountainous areas, they had them in the side of the rock instead of in the ground. They were actually like walk in tombs. Archaeologists also uncovered terracotta ceramics and glass bottles, as well as oil lamps. Hmm. Coins and sandals, personal belongings of the deceased, were also found. The pre Christian tombs offer new insight into religious beliefs of ancient people in the region. The lamps in the graves, for example, were taught to help illuminate the journey, or thought to help illuminate the journey into the afterlife. I don't think so, but that was a good thought, right? So now we want to get into the crux of this because I believe what's coming is going to be pretty controversial here in the United States. And we need to prepare for the possibility of this stuff being pretty detrimental to everybody's life, considering what could happen. So let's get right into the fact that we are looking at a government shutdown now going into November, and they're talking about the SNAP benefits stopping as of November 1st. So let's see, is this? Yeah, let's get into this right here. Let me pull it up real quick. Um, that's that one, right? Yeah, here we go. All right. This article is from USA Today. But you see here, parts of the government effectively stopped operating October 1st after lawmakers in Congress failed to agree on funding allocations for the 2026 fiscal year. Healthcare policy remains a key sticking point in the shutdown for Democrats, who are pushing to reverse Republican cuts to the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid. Republicans have argued that healthcare can be debated after the shutdown is over. Will SNAP benefits go out in November? The USDA confirmed in a new message on its website that no SNAP benefits will be issued come November 1st. Bottom line, the well has run dry at this time. There will be no benefits issued November 1st. The message reads in part. Echoing similar comments from Republicans and officials from President Donald Trump's administration, the message pointed blame at Democrat lawmakers for the shutdown. The USDA is led by Trump appointee Brooke Rollins. We are approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats, the message said. They can continue to hold out for health care for illegal aliens and gender mutilation procedures, or reopen the government so mothers, babies, and the most vulnerable among us can receive critical nutrition assistance. So it seems to me, ladies and gentlemen, that the Democrats are holding this government closed on purpose so that they can get what they want, instead of actually opening up the government so that families can have their benefits when they need them. Although a lot of people are talking about how they think the government being shut down has been a good thing. If you're paying attention to the stock market the last couple of days, um, the stock market has gone off the chain. Like, we just hit critical mass. It was like at 4,700, I think. They reported yesterday that it's hit its largest um, closing day in a long time. And so a lot of people think that that's good. But there's videos all over the internet right now of people coming out and saying that if their SNAP benefits run out and they need to feed their babies, that they're going to be raiding stores and stealing from stores in order to do it, and that if you work there, that you should not pay attention to what they're doing because it doesn't concern you as a worker, right? Although most stores right now, especially if you live in a blue state, they allow for up to $1,000 in merchandise to be taken without being stopped whatsoever. And most stores, and this is why over here in Oregon, most of our Rite Aids and these are the smaller corner store slash grocery store type places, and Walgreens are closing down everywhere because of the theft has become so significant, even without this happening, right? So now, what are we going to see when these places actually are rated because the SNAP benefits? And I think it will extend much farther past that, including and not exclusive to people raiding other people's homes that they know have working families in them if they are feeling hungry. Hunger is a whole new animal, people. And when people are hungry, they will do a lot of crazy stuff in order to get there. They will be out for blood, right? And we know that they will go after other people's homes in this case because we've seen this happen before. And so I think it's vital that everybody understands that this could happen, and we need to be preparing for this kind of thing should the benefits run out. Now, there's a story that just came out today that the Senate Republicans are talking to Trump about um, bringing a bill forth that would cut the congressional pay until the government is opened back up. So this is a snap back, pun intended, a snap back from the Republicans to try and hold the Democrats accountable and cut their pay until they open up the government. And maybe this is a good contingency plan, strategy plan in the midst of this to stop this from actually happening. We only have just a few days left before November 1st, so hopefully, if that's the case, they can take action right away. But SNAP money is allocated monthly, so October benefits went out as usual despite the government shutdown. USDA says it can't tap into contingency funds for SNAP. The USDA shutdown contingency plan said the agency has a reserve of contingency funds which can be used to pay benefits directly. The plan, which was issued in September, has since been removed from the USDA's website. Oh, what's going on there? That's not good. In a letter shared with USA Today, however, the USDA said the contingency money is available only to supplement regular monthly benefits when amounts have been appropriated for, but are insufficient to cover benefits. So maybe this will just go to the most extreme of those that are in poverty. Now, for people out there that listen to this and they do end up in this situation where they don't have benefits whatsoever, it, if you're able bodied, you should go to work, right? That's one of the solutions for this. But there are other solutions. The church today, that's part of what they do. Okay, there are food banks in several churches throughout the areas, and if you run into this problem, instead of going into chaotic hissy fit, you should probably look into something like that, right? The contingency fund is not available to support um, FY 2026 regular benefits. I don't know what FY stands for. Because the appropriation for regular benefits no longer exists, the letter said. The letter also said states can't pay for SNAP payments and be reimbursed, even if they are willing to do so. The best way for SNAP to continue is for the shutdown to end, the letter said. Um, let's see. Though the USDA's new statement provides a definitive answer on November SNAP benefits, the agency had been warned about the lapse in funding. In a letter to states agencies dated October 10th, the agency said there would be insufficient funds to pay for full November SNAP benefits if the shutdown continued. And of course, they're saying that it probably will. Usually, states send data about eligible household SNAP benefits to its electronic benefits transfer, the EBT vendor, each month. But in the letter, which was signed by SNAP Development Director Sasha Gerstein Pale, the USDA directed states to pause on sending that information until further notice. Then, in a statement to USA Today on October 22nd, the USDA said an inflection point was approaching for SNAP and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC. And we won't get into what it says here, but I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to go into um, let's see. I wanted to go into the fact that this is going to add to the problem here in the United States. And I think what the Democrats are trying to do here is because of they're losing this battle with these ICE facilities, right? And Trump bringing in the the NGRF to put a stop to it, right? So what just happened here in Oregon is the governor did not want the NGRF to come in here, and in order to get the National Guard to not come in here because she knew that Trump was going to send them in because he got approval from the 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 ninth the the Ninth District Court of Appeals, right, to send them in. She decides that she's going to send in the police bureau to clear out our Antifa encampment down at the ICE facility completely. They're gone. Not one person down there anymore. So that we don't get the National Guard to come in, right? And so now they have to find a way to shift because they're running out of options in order to get what they want. So I think what they're trying to do is this was their plan in order to cause civil unrest here in the United States. And now they're targeting the people, the very people that actually backed them from the beginning, right? Let's target these people. Let's find a way that they can suffer so that they will go nuts and they will hit the regular working everyday people like the ICE agents, right? And so I think this is going to take a shift now. So if the benefits wear out on November 1st and we're looking at a heightened possibility of civil unrest because people start to go hungry and you start getting random people raiding houses, um, random people causing chaos, burning down buildings, stuff like that, then they have an alternative to Antifa coming out on the streets. And I think that is what you're going to see. So let's see, did I have another? That's the same one. Yeah, so if it comes to that, ladies and gentlemen, then we're going to see a lot of suffering going on and unnecessary violence, just like they want. And I think this adds to the narrative, like I showed in my last show, about how um, religious persecution is going to pick up, right? And I disclosed back a few shows ago that there are going to be new factions and groups that come out to help with religious persecution. And just like in my last show, revealing and how I opened up here, that we are going to have that issue with these people that are out for the no king in the no kings protests and Antifa. Now these people didn't go away, remember. They're still in the background, and we have to keep an eye on what they're going to do. So if they can create another group here that goes out, it's to me that would be uncontrolled chaos, but it could significantly increase the possibility of problems like this that are happening all over the United States. And one of those is um, one of the things I wanted to bring to the forefront was church fires. Now you might not think that these two things are related, right? But I think this is one of the things we need to watch out for as things start to get chaotic here in the United States, because somehow it's going to tie in together. And if you're listening to the talking heads out there, they're all talking about how Antifa, socialism, Democrats, Islam, Muslims, they're all kind of separate entities, but somehow they're working together to try and collapse the economy and the Western culture completely. Not just here in the United States, they've already done it over in the UK, right? And in other places are far more severe than what's going on here, because we actually have a strong foundation here in the United States of Judeo Christian history. We have a constitution that has far surpassed any other civilization in the entire world ever, approaching 250 years. They're trying their darndest to collapse this, right? So, over the past decade, an estimated 13,000 church fires have occurred across the United States, averaging approximately 1,300 incidents per year, with arson accounting for around 25% of these cases. Reports show that the number of intentional church fires, those caused by arson or bombings, has increased slightly compared to previous decades, but remains a significant concern, with roughly half of all church fires incidents being ruled intentional in the long term trend from 1996 to 2015. Recent annual data indicate a noticeable uptick in hostile acts against churches, surging to over 400 incidents in 2023 and 2024, including vandalism, arson, gun related events, and bomb threats. While many of these attacks are classified as vandalism, arson remains the leading cause of church fires. Church arson and related fire incidents become particularly prominent following major social events such as protests, hello, or court decisions. I just tied it in for you. There's the connection. Influencing spikes in cases from 2020 onwards. Arson is notably more common in churches than any other type of buildings, making it about one quarter of all church fires annually. Now they've attacked, small businesses too, other than that, because we see that type of thing happening entirely all around, just like I pointed out with the small corner slash grocery stores with Rite Aid and Walgreens over here in Oregon. And there might be, other businesses like that that have shut down in your area. Other causes include electrical faults, heating accidents, and general vandalism, but intentional acts remain central in church fire statistics throughout the US. Because not all cases are officially reported or investigated, especially minor incidents, actual numbers may be higher than documented statistics. Tracking from major resource organizations began systematically only in recent years, but averages over the past decade are consistent with long term trends. In summary, the US has experienced roughly 13,000 church fires in the last decade, with intentional arson accounting for a significant portion and year to year variations reflecting broader socio political factors. Now, that's super important to identify there, the socio political factors, because just as I pointed out, there's that connection there when when protests and riots happen, then these things begin to happen all over the globe and the nation, right? Um, let's see, where did I want to go next? And that comes into alignment with the fact that we're seeing an uptick in religious persecution, right? Because this is all included. Sometimes it's hard to draw those connections, but if they can get civil unrest, imagine from where we're at right now with religious persecution, these church fires, other acts like that, all over the US, but it's happening all over the globe. And I want to share this article with you that came up on the 16th to show you, just like I showed in my show a few days ago about Nigeria and the Sudan, right? Things have, well, let's see. Do I want to show you the Egyptian one first? Yeah, things have erupted over there. No, this one has more of a total sense about it. So I'm going to go with that one first. So let's go with this. All right. Let me blow this up here for you a little bit. All right. Persecution of Christians worldwide has increased significantly in both quantity and intensity, human rights expert in Berlin, Germany, said on Wednesday. Thomas Schumacher, president of the International Society for Human Rights, said at a press conference announcing the release of their 2025 yearbooks, Religious Freedom and Persecution and Discrimination of Christians, that the situation of Christians in many regions has deteriorated significantly across the globe. This takes form not only of direct violence, murders, kidnappings, but also of legislation, social discrimination, restrictions in public and private life, and control of churches and religious services. There's a whole bunch of ties right there, right? Restrictions in public and private life. So he's admitting right there. So if we have SNAP benefits being withheld from families that have been used to getting them, right, as a benefit, this is the kind of stuff that happens. Schumacher said at the German Evangelical Alliance offices in Berlin, the rise of authoritarian regimes, religious nationalism, political instability, and violent conflicts is increasing the pressure of persecution. Schumacher, founder and co-editor of the yearbooks and former Secretary General of the World Evangelical Alliance, said they evaluated contemporary threats to freedom rights, including state persecution, extremist violence, imperialist dominance, and anti-religious discrimination. Religious freedom is a fundamental human right, but threats against it are increasing worldwide, said Schumacher, who just returned from meeting religious minorities in Syria and Iraq, Kurdistan. Highlighting two case studies from the new yearbook, he noted that Islamist groups in Nigeria, such as Boko Haram, just went over this a couple of weeks ago with you guys, Islamic State, West Africa Province, and Fulani herdsmen militias continually targeting Christian communities. Terrorist attacks, kidnappings, murders, and the destruction of church facilities occur regularly, affecting not only individuals but forcing entire communities to live in fear and uncertainty. Expected to be the third largest Christian country in the world by 2050, Nigeria has needs that remain enormous as it requires more emergency doctors, early warning systems, and evacuation measures to prevent further massacres. The situation in Pakistan is also worrying, he said, as Christians regularly suffer under discriminatory blasphemy laws. The mere accusation of blasphemy can socially ostracize people, expose them to violent attacks, or bring them to court. In addition, abductions, forced conversions to Islam, and marriages particularly affect girls from religious minorities, mostly Hindus or Christians. And actually, I almost pulled up the other article, but it came out either yesterday or today that the blasphemy laws over there in Pakistan are actually under review and could change very soon towards the betterment of Christians over there. So that could be good. But there's still a large portion that is being persecuted, murdered, and killed and kidnapped, right? Despite laws to combat such abuses, implementation remains weak. While some courts show progress in protecting minors, discrimination continues. International pressure from the Union and others has brought cautious signs of improvement, but the situation remains serious, Schumacher said. Or Schumacher. I said Schumacher, whatever. These are numerous other cases the yearbook covers show that the situation for Christians is precarious in many regions, he says. As publishers of the yearbooks on persecution and discrimination of Christians, we call on politicians and civil society, also on behalf of our authors and supporters, to defend religious freedom resolutely and not remain silent about the fate of persecuted Christians. I also saw today that the Senate Republicans are looking at bringing forth a bill to to have the Trump administration do more about Christian persecution worldwide. Although he's doing a great deal for us here in the United States, we're still very susceptible to this thing materializing very soon. Schumacher emphasized that politicians must consistently defend religious freedom as a fundamental human right and not treat it as a marginal political issue. He added that history has shown time and again that where freedom of belief ends, the erosion of other fundamental freedom rights begins. People of various religions and beliefs suffer defamation, discrimination, and prosecution or persecution belief of their faith, he said in the statement. We want to contribute to putting a stop to the enemies of freedom of belief and conscience. Now, if you've been watching the Mom Donnie campaign, he just came out and talking about his supposed aunt, right? He got caught in a lie. It was actually his dad's sister that he was really unaffiliated with, but he equated it to her memory because he remembers as a kid how she talked about being or not feeling like she was welcome. And he said that she lived in the New York area at the time, which was found out to be a lie because of what happened during 9/11, right? And that basically the Muslims were looked negatively upon because those were the people that attacked our country and our world trade centers. Okay? So, Mom Donnie, you are not welcome here. Sharia law is not welcome here. We have a constitution. We have religions here that we believe should be able to be free and worship, right? But you don't get to implement your laws into our society. It's time for you to go. They suffer discrimination in professional and social life, violent attacks, kidnappings, explosions, and abuse. Right there, it says it right there. That is what your people do. They did it back in 9/11 here. They do it all over the world still. It is the radical Islamic belief system that is doing this to Christians all over the world. Two factors are the root causes of global persecution of Christians, he said. First, dictatorial one-party states like China, Cuba, and North Korea view Christians as a threat and therefore strictly monitor and oppress them. There's some major stuff going on over in China right now, too. In fact, Trump just came out and he told President Xi that he needs to release a father of a Christian underground church over there that they have in captivity and in prison to release him. Second, militant political religious movements or groups victimize Christians. They suffer discrimination in professional and social life, violent attacks, kidnappings. Oh, I already said that. Schirmacher noted that Christians in Egypt, Syria, Nigeria, India, and Myanmar suffer particularly under such conditions. He cited other states such as the Islamic republics of Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan that have tied their social order to a religion in a totalitarian manner and ruthlessly enforced their religious, political, coercive order with state resources. Oh, what was I talking about? How many Muslim officials have we in government, especially over on the East Coast of the United States in these cities, right? If you go look at the nokings.org and you look at their map, look at how significant the protesting and the um, gatherings that they have on the eastern side of the United States compared to the western side. It's pretty significant. In all of these states, Christians suffer, and with them, other religious communities, he said. We must not be indifferent to this, for our commitment to the victims can only be credible and ultimately successful if we do not focus solely on one group of victims while ignoring the others. At the same time, we must analyze and publicize the motives of the oppressors. The enemies of freedom of belief and conscience fear this most, and it can put a stop to their activities. Now, we see that Trump tried to implement this peace deal, and it has been revealed now that Hamas doesn't look like they're going to be willing to go forth with this. As a matter of fact, I saw another article, and you could go look it up, where Hamas took a prisoner that they had already released and recaptured him and killed him and then turned him over again. This is exactly what they do. Thomas Rachel, Germany's federal government commissioner for freedom of religion and belief and a member of the German Bundestag, don't know what that is, pointed out that that advocating for freedom of religion and belief is an important part of the government's human rights policy, as it is here in the United States. Furthermore, respect for freedom of religion and belief is an important contribution to strengthening peace and stability in the world, Rachel said in a press statement. When governments disregard this freedom, conflict and violence can arise. Well, it can arise without it because it's clearly happening. This is another reason why dialogue with and between religious communities is so important. When international politics gives greater consideration to religion, this can often be an opportunity for peace. Let's see what else here. By mid 2023, Russian authorities had closed almost all independent religious communities in whatever regions those are. So I wanted to show this to you too, because as I told you before in the last show I did about this, is we had Egypt providing the Sudan and Nigeria with weaponry in the background, even though Trump is the one that went over to Cairo, right, to sign this peace deal, and Al-Sisi is the one that has been doing this in the background and giving weaponry to these factions over there in the Sudan that are killing Christians. But I want to show you this because this just popped up as well over in Egypt. Check this out. Anti-Christian violence erupts in Egyptian village. Homes burned, dozens injured. Do you remember the story in John 8 where the teachers of religious law and Pharisees threw a woman who had been caught in idolatry before Jesus? Do you remember his response? Everyone wanted to stone her to death. According to the law, that was the punishment she deserved. Instead, Jesus offered grace, wisdom, forgiveness, and mercy. So you're telling this is another thing I want to get across for all you listeners out there is the fact that we ended up in this situation. One of the reasons we ended up in this situation here in the United States, other than the fact that Obama legalized same-sex marriage back in 2015, right? And that was part of the downturn here in the United States. But if you talk to any of the LGBTQ community personally, one of the things that you'll find out is the fact that they could not deal with Christians coming out who proselytize and try to get people walking the street to turn to Jesus, right? They feel that that was us shoving religion down their throat. Well, now that you have this coming on, where Islam is pushing its way into the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are an unbeliever of Jesus Christ, you're about to find out what Islam is all about, because they will not ask questions. They will say to you, either you accept or you go to the grave, because they kill infidels. That's exactly what they do. That's why they can't make peace. That's why Hamas literally means violence. That's their belief. They believe in all these virgins if they kill infidels, right? Because they'll go to heaven for what they believe in. That's what they believe. They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. And you're trying to tell me that Christianity is too harsh? When this is what Jesus did. They kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. So they were pointing the finger at her. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, if you're all without sin, or the one of you that is without sin, you throw the first stone then. One by one, the woman's accusers walked away. They knew they were all sinners and therefore couldn't throw the first stone. When just Jesus and the woman remained, he asked her, where are your accusers? Did even one of them condemn you? Not one, the woman replied. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Now that's grace, ladies and gentlemen. But Islam does not do that. They will not ask questions. They will throw that stone, or much worse. As I read the anti-Christian reports on violence in Egypt, this story came to mind. Why? According to Christian Today, violence has broken out in a small Egyptian village following a rumored relationship between a Christian man and a Muslim woman. Premier Christian News notes that following those accusations, hate speech on social media was used to propel members of the Muslim community into action. And that they did. Muslims gathered outside of Christians' homes and businesses and threw stones, causing an uproar of violence. They also began burning objects and sending online threats to many Christian communities. As police intervened and arrested many of the attackers, Christian Solidarity Worldwide states that local authorities have arranged a much-needed reconciliation session between the two groups. But it's not going to work. Despite this planned makeup session, concerns have arisen that this violent response is somewhat typical for after persecution. Egypt has begun cracking down on unregistered religious groups, despite religious freedom being, on paper at least, guaranteed by the Egyptian constitution. What typically stems from offended Muslims groups rather than the state merely highlights an ongoing social political tension between Christians and Muslims. These attacks aren't new, but they have been worsening over decades. When asked about this latest throwing of stones, Scott Brewer, CEO of Christian Solidarity Worldwide, noted that sectarian attacks are not only assaults on innocent people, they also undermine the fundamental rights and human dignity that should be enjoyed by every citizen. Demanding that action be taken quickly by local police authorities. This violence is a reminder to us all that religious freedom is still under threat and persecution. In a world where our brothers and sisters in Christ are facing violence and persecution, let us pray. Let us pray for perseverance in the face of hardship, unity in the face of arguments, and love in the face of hate. We may live in a world of violence and evil affairs, but the light shines in this darkness, and the darkness can never overcome it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to get to this one here too, because one of the things that we still face here in the United States, and I think is going to tie in if things go haywire here, is this article right here. And this company is called Theos. And Theos launches major study into Christian nationalism. Oh, how much has that phrase been in the news over the last couple of years, right? Until Trump took over, right? And we got our Faith and Freedom Office in there, and he's doing things to stop Christian persecution here in the United States. But this company is a think tank. Theos is launching a 2-year study into the global rise of Christian nationalism. It will explore how faith, politics, and identity are becoming increasingly intertwined and what theology can offer in response. The research comes as communities are increasingly using Christian flags and symbols to take a stand in the debate around immigration, and the study will look at the demographic, ethnic, socio-economic, and educational characteristics of the rise in Christian nationalism. It will cover the UK and up to 7 other countries, and involving polling, interviews, and evaluation of media, social media campaigns, rallies, and manifestos. This project is being led by Theos senior fellow Nick Spencer. He told Premiere that Christian nationalism is difficult to define. It is a complex range of things more than the sum of its parts. It's not simply being a Christian and believing in your nation. It's somehow believing that to belong to your nation, you've got to be a Christian. It's a kind of fusing of religious identity with national identity. One of the reasons we talk about Christian nationalism is because the US is so predominant. More and more people seem to be drawing on Christian images, texts, symbols to make political points, and sometimes to make exclusivist political points. That seems to it. That seems to it point towards it growing here. Our country, our culture is massively hinged on the Christian gospel, but it's no substitute to say, I want my Christian country to reflect that commitment without the people in it reflecting that commitment. So, yes, you might want to preserve the nation's Christian cultural heritage, but that's no substitute for it actually being Christian in the sense of people consciously and willingly following Jesus Christ. And I had this rebuttal because we straight up know that our Christian Judeo history was by our founding fathers, ladies and gentlemen. And it was said by none other than John Adams. While our country remains untainted with the principles and manners which are now producing desolation in so many parts of the world, while she continues sincere and incapable of insidious, impious policy, we shall have the strongest reason to rejoice in the local destination assigned us by Providence. But should the people of America once become capable of that deep simulation towards one another and towards foreign nations, which assumes the language of justice and moderation while it is practicing iniquity and extravagance, and displays in the most captivating manner the charming pictures of candor, frankness, and sincerity, while it is rotting in rapine and insolence. Oh, this country will be the most miserable habitation in the world because we have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion, avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And ladies and gentlemen, that includes Sharia law. It does not belong in Western culture or against it. It is a threat and it needs to be rooted out. And I, for one, believe that we need to look into Zohran Mamdani's past and see if he is a prime candidate to be deported out of the United States, as well as any of these other officials that are in our cities all over the United States, just like Ilhan Omar. They need to go. These things cannot stay here in the United States because they are incompatible. And we cannot afford to have our nation fall to something that is not compatible, ladies and gentlemen. And there's so much to this. It's crazy. And I do not want to see our nation go in this direction and fall for this. We need to take contingency plans against our education system that are teaching our children this way. And if you're a mother or a father out there like I am, I have an 11-year-old son. This is one of the things that I started to work against early on because I knew that our schools were against what our Western culture has built and what we believe in. So if you're not taking a stand as a parent, I started when my son was 3. I started reading him the Word of God. I started having him memorize Scripture. I started having him memorize constitutional inscriptions out of the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, right? These are things that I took a contingency plan as a parent for my son because I knew what we were up against, and I knew that none of the people that were working in our institutions were going to defend our beliefs from our foundation. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, if you're conservative and you believe in America and you believe in God and you have the faith of a Christian and you see these things coming up, these are some of the things that you need to be doing, especially if your children are young. Yes, we don't want to, as a Generation X, we don't want to take on these responsibilities. I certainly didn't want them, but ladies and gentlemen, it's something that I knew I had to do because nobody else is going to do it. You have to draw that red line because that's what we do here. We don't blur the line, we draw it, right? And truth is not trending, ladies and gentlemen. It's eternal. It's eternal. We are not waiting for a rescue where we are training for rule if you believe in God and Jesus Christ coming back again. This is what we're up against. We're in training right now. Are you willing to take on the task? Because we must. And I, for one, am up for the battle. So it's time for you to draw the red line in your life, the red line in your mind with Jesus Christ our Lord, and the red line against this world system, ladies and gentlemen, just like Trump said, fight, fight, fight. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you share this out. Leave some stuff in the chat for me so I can get back to you. That would be awesome. And we will see you next time.